when you create that static model of who you are, then you have to defend it, because who would you be without it? And so we become reactive and defensive around who I know myself to be. And for me, there's this really clear choice. You can be who you know yourself to be, or you can be present. You can't have it both ways. And when I'm present, the world, my relationships illuminate me. That's how I know who I am.
And there's a risk in that. You don't know what you're going to be called to do. You may be called into action or service in some way that's scary or dangerous, or you may be called to love. And is there a greater risk than that? Because it will hurt at some point. There will be grief when you lose it.
What if your body is not something you have, but is something you are? Welcome to the Brilliant Body Podcast. I'm your host, Ali Mazet, somatic therapist and sexologist with a lifelong fascination for the challenges and opportunities that come with being the bodies that we are. Join me and other body masters as we explore the art, science, and brilliance of the body and debunk the mind-body split by expanding the meaning and experience of intelligence, which goes way beyond just thinking. So let's dive in. So when I was thinking about Valentine's Day and what gift I could give to you, I immediately thought about two people who know so much about love and marriage. My dear friends, Philip Shepard and Allyson Woodrooffe, who are two of my favorite people in the world and who have one of my favorite marriages in the world. And sure enough, this conversation taught me all kinds of things about love and life. And now I get to share it with you. Happy Valentine's Day. I hope you get as much from this conversation as I did. Allyson Woodrooffe is the co-director with Philip Shepard of the Embodied Present Process, TEP, and a certified professional coactive coach. Through one-on-one coaching and the workshops and trainings that TEP offers, she helps people come home to their breath and their bodies, acting as a transformative space holder for their personal journey. Philip Shepard is recognized as a leader in the global embodiment movement. He is the co-director of the Embodied Present Process, which offers courses online, one-on-one coaching sessions, and workshops, retreats, and facilitator trainings worldwide. Philip is the author of 2 books so far, Radical Wholeness and New Self, New World, and co-author of Deep Fitness. When I was thinking about a Valentine's episode, I was thinking about couples I admire and love. And you two are who came to mind in heart and body. And so I thought, okay, who better to speak to? And not just because I assume you have a very good marriage. I've observed that you have a very good marriage, and I've heard that you have a very good marriage, but because I would love to talk to you today about how embodiment has benefited. If you use that word, I don't tend to use that word very often, but I know people foist that word on you both a lot because that's the umbrella that's out there to try to talk about the body and what I call the body's brilliance, what you call a variety of other amazing things. So I would love to just explore with you how being the bodies that we are, attunement to the bodies, the sensitivity of our bodies, the receptivity of our bodies has informed and resourced you as a couple and as individuals in a couple.
Using the word embodiment, just to contextualize that, another synonym I'd offer would be presence. Another synonym would be wholeness. Another synonym would be intelligence in a holistic fashion. So we tend to break our intelligence into, I feel from the heart, I think with the head, but to bring that into coherence is presence, is wholeness, is embodiment for me.
Yay, that was done neatly and quickly. Glad we got that straight right off the bat. Thank you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You're just making me think of what's catching my eye is the word on our table, which you can't see, Allie, but it's hexeity, H-A-E-C-C-E-I-T-Y, and we have it painted onto a piece of copper that's embedded in our table. And hexeity means thisness. So it's like this reminder all the time, even subconsciously, just thisness.
The quality of this.
So
And
what does that
to-
feel like for you?
Well,
Yeah.
it's a dropping in. It's this little reminder that just I land here.
It brings me to a disclaimer that I think we'd both be comfortable making, which is in no way do we want to say we've sorted out our relationship and we've got the secret that everyone can benefit from. No, our relationship is something we are present to, we are sorting out in every moment. There's nothing fixed about it. There's nothing assumed about it. It's how we navigate, and it doesn't mean it's how anyone else should navigate. We're both really wary about holding ourselves up as some ideal to which others should aspire. No,
We have
no.
all the warts and flaws of every other relationship.
But that's precisely why I wanted to speak to both of you, because it is something that's alive. It's in process.
Yeah,
It's
unfolding.
how, yes, it's how some of us refer to the body, the soma, as something that is constantly in movement and in presence at best, as opposed to some sort of deadened version or concept or set of constraints or set of assumptions or all those things that so many relationships are from the get-go, from even before getting into them, because it's a concept so many people have of what relationship is. That's a particular interest of mine. I'll put this out from the beginning about sexuality, for example, that we have such preconceptions about what even sex is and what it looks like and how to do it and how to have it done and all these things that we miss the thisness of what is there. So I understand it in that realm better than in a long-term relationship because it's been a long time since I've been in one. So I want to just assuage any concerns that I am idealizing your relationship in terms of how it is as a noun. I perceive it as a verb, very much a verb, and would love to learn more about it precisely because I think so few people explore relationship that way, in this living way, in this organic, constantly evolving way, which is also, by the way, why so many people are struggling with their relationships and getting into polyamory and all these different iterations of relationship, because this very staid, structured concept we tend to have of relationship doesn't work for so many people. So again, it sounds like what you just described is that your sense of presence very much informs the presence of your relationship as well, that it sounds like, are they one and the same in a sense? Like you are present to yourself, but you're also hopefully present to the other and to what you are as a third entity, the relationship itself. Would you describe it that way, or how do you describe your experience of it?
In many ways, I don't know how to disentangle us into separate beings. That sounds a little undesirable in some ways, but I think we've been together for so long and we've each explored so many different threads that have informed the relationship that we've woven this third entity, as you say.
I also, to go back to presence and getting away from assumptions and embodiment, I'm very wary about the cultural encouragement to know thyself. Because what it can lead to is like a grocery list of who I am. And there's nothing I want to hold on to that objectifies who I am or turns it into a static entity. I discover who I am through relationship. There's nothing independent of relationship, that I am called into being by relationship. So I stand before a tree and if I'm present to it, I am illuminated by it. I watch a child playing on a sidewalk. I am present to that child. I'm illuminated by it. So who I am is illuminated by the world. And There's nothing that more deeply illuminates who I am than the presence of Allyson. And what I'm so cautious in bringing to that is, in the same way that I'm cautious about saying I know who I am, I would never presume to know who Allyson is, to know what she's feeling, what she's thinking. No, I look to her to discover who she is in this moment and am illuminated by her being as that happens.
Whoa, that so busts the perspective of Esther Perel about relationship that she speaks about in Mating in Captivity, where have you read that? She gives this dialectic between, oh, either you have the electric eros novelty, don't really know your partner and it's insecure, but it's exciting, or you have the person, or you think you know the person and you need that sense of familiarity and normalcy in order to have children and have a sense of relaxation in your daily life. And the reason why sparks and love and eros dies in long-term relationship is because we start to assume we know the other person. And so you don't keep renewing both yourself and your sense of who the partner is. And that's why eros dies in long-term relationships. So that's the thesis of it. And it takes until the last chapter or two in the book where she finally says, well, if you learn to tolerate novelty and uncertainty and danger in your long-term relationship and realize that you don't know your person as well as you think you do, that's the key to rediscovering eros in relationship. That was the basis of her fame and fortune.
To
Was
me,
that
what's missing from that is the body.
Mm-hmm.
Security is, there's one security that no one can take from me, and that is the security of my being, dropping down to the pelvic bowl, resting in my core. And there's such a difference for me between security and safety is contingent on circumstances, the lock on my door, the money in my bank account, whatever it might be. And there's a certain point at which safety becomes anti-life, because life itself isn't safe. You're going to get sick, you're going to get hurt, you're going to feel loss and grief, you're going to die. Life isn't safe. And I think what happens in our cultural mindset is we recognize that life isn't safe. And so we conclude, well, maybe if I'm less alive, I'll be more safe. And we make ourselves smaller.
Okay, so let's bring in the whole issue, concept, experience of monogamy in that, which is largely for people to feel safer. I mean, that's really what monogamy can be about. It can be at best about dedication and engagement and fully committing to one person, but it can also be about, I don't want to share this person because they might leave me, or I don't want to have to include things that I'm going to be too uncomfortable or threatened by. So how would you include that into your perspective?
I'm just feeling my way into that. Go ahead if you, I'm just sitting with it. It's a really interesting question.
Yeah. In other words, can you feel secure even if you might lose Allyson tomorrow for one reason or another? My guess is you'd say, well, I'll let you say it, but the more we can keep connecting to that security, the easier it is for us to navigate our external circumstances, even when your most significant other decides on a different path. I don't know.
Yeah, I've no way of knowing how I would react if I lost Allyson tomorrow. But when I feel into it, my sense is that I would feel gratitude for every moment we've had together. And this monogamy thing is interesting. It's like there is this vein of gold running through creation that I call Allyson. And I am being enriched by it, and I will never mine to the bottom of it. It will never be exhausted. And it is through that deepening relationship that I deepen into myself. She has a clarity of being that I learn from every single day. And if there's a limit that I find in the relationship, I've learned to recognize that's a limit in me, have desensitized. I have lost some connection with my wholeness.
So beautiful. How is that to hear, Allison, that somebody loves you that much in that way? It's so deeply moving to me. There's tears running down my face.
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because I know sometimes I deflect. I'm like,
I bet that was a lot.
that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can receive it fully and deeply
Mm.
and feel similarly. I think one of our wedding vows that we wrote for ourselves was, may we always be coming into becoming together. And I feel like that unknowing, that's the seed of the unknowing. We don't know each other, but we also don't know ourselves in a fixed way. And so there's always room for us to explore and to test and to challenge and to
Yeah.
drop into the wonder of it. I think we're so lucky that we were both maybe a little odd in our families, and we recognized in each other a difference. Like, I'm thinking of some of our little rituals we had in the early days. We'd go down to the beach and dig a hole in the sand and light a candle at night and make some wish. Whether it was about us or when I was pregnant with our first daughter, feeling into the qualities we might invite into her being. Sorry, Julia, we didn't do it with the second one. We
Yeah.
couldn't leave Kate at home.
Yeah.
But I think our difference, I don't know, I feel like we met. Do you want me to? We met working on it.
I do. I was going to ask you that, but monogamy is such an interesting topic.
Yeah.
And then I'm also want to say to our audio listeners, we have 3 sets of moist eyes through this last several minutes of conversation. And I imagine many people listening will also be deeply moved by this, because whenever one is in the presence of love, of whatever love is, it's hard not to feel, for me anyway, I'll speak it, the feeling, it's almost grief in me. Maybe because I have never shared what you're describing with somebody. So it's sweet and it's painful. And I perceived that when I was looking at your faces too, that it isn't just joyful, what you're describing. Like, it's almost too big to bear into one description. And I don't know if that's what I'm looking at or not, but it's what I'm feeling.
Feels like a beautiful mirror to me.
Does it?
Yeah.
Is there grief in that kind of love too? Or not grief, but what would you call it? Why does it bring
I'm,
tears to us?
I'm
As if it's almost like sadness.
There is a tenderness to it. There's a
Yeah.
everything is transient. I'm thinking of a
Yes.
Zamimoto Kyo, who was the founder of Japanese No theater, lost a son.
Mm.
And he wrote this little tiny poem. Because in the Japanese culture, there's the world of dew. Everything is transient. It comes
Yeah.
and it goes. And he wrote, the world of dew is just a world of dew. And yet. And that longing, that grief is nothing but an acknowledgement of love. You don't grieve what you haven't loved. And so there's always that celebration. There's a guy, one of my favorite authors, Russell Hoban, who wrote a book that had in it this line, isn't all art a celebration of loss? A celebration of loss. And that, this will pass and this will pass. And it feels like there is that tinge of tender cherishing that is made possible in light of the knowledge that this will pass.
Yes. And having is it courage or I don't even like the word willingness, the acceptance to, in exchange for that great love, to accept that great loss as well, whether it's through death or somebody falls in love with somebody else or whatever it is. Of course, it is transient. So, of course, Shakespeare's brilliant saying, it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. And yet so many people choose, if not love, they choose a lesser love. They choose a dampened down, well, I know you and I think you're this and I will only feel you so far, or I'll only invest in this so much, or that kind of thing.
I also, just to add to that, if I may, I also think that if you're not embodied, love is dangerous because it pulls you out of yourself. Suddenly your gravitational center shifts and you're reaching for it and making demands of it and placing expectations on it.
Yes, as if you need that other person in order to be what you actually are and forget.
And they will inevitably let you down too. If you're not in yourself, they're going to do things that you then blame them for how they land in you.
We've got a great story.
I want to hear that story. And then we're going back to your origin story, which I very much want to hear.
A friend of ours recounted it, so we weren't there, but he was sitting in the living room with his dad. They were watching a television show, and his mom was in the kitchen baking something. And they heard the oven door open, and the mom pulled something out, and it slipped and fell. And they could hear this happen. And then they heard from the kitchen, "Now look what you made me do."
My memory is they could see her.
Oh, that's right.
And she turned and looked at her husband and said, "Now look what you made me do." So we use that line regularly, which I think speaks to humor as one of the great forces in our relationship. Sometimes it's very playful. I think we delight in making each other laugh. And sometimes there's a little edge that helps diffuse a situation or shift the energy. But I love that we love to laugh together. I think others might not find anything we find funny.
Back to that recognition of a co-weirdo.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your particular brand of weirdness obviously resonated all those years ago. So tell us about all those years ago. How did you meet?
We met in 1988, a million years ago, working on a low-budget sci-fi feature film that has never made it off the cutting room floor.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I was working as the director's assistant, and Philip was the main actor. And
Were you playing an alien?
No, it has not that time.
No, I've been sent to outer space.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it was difficult. The project was difficult because there was no money. We were in these crazy locations, like an abandoned metal factory and a shuttered psychiatric hospital, and just locations
long
outside.
days, long nights.
Oh, yeah, brutal hours. And you got to see the best and the worst of each other. Not really that there was a lot of worst, but we were in this hard situation. I think other people who do hard things together find you come away at the end of it with some, maybe not even just hard, doing a theater show or doing some really intense project together. You bond in a certain way. And I think we saw each other. I'm really grateful for that. We never dated. We got to know each other working together. We did have a sort of a funny courtship because I was still in film school in Vancouver, but we had met in Toronto where Philip lived. And I went back to school, back to Vancouver, and he would phone me every Friday night at 9 p.m. Vancouver time, which was midnight Toronto time. So a little cramping of my style in university, having to be home at 9 p.m. And we wrote letters. We wrote so many letters over a full semester. And then I moved in with him in January.
So did you leave school? Or you were finished with school?
I dropped out to move across the country and in with a penniless actor.
But also because she wasn't.
The program I was in was struggling and it was difficult. And so I had planned to continue my studies here, but there wasn't a great program. So I joined a filmmaking co-op and took courses, and then taught courses that made films on my own.
And obviously your love was able to withstand, I wouldn't go so far as to say poverty, but it sounds like it was pretty slim pickings for quite a while.
Yeah, but it was so simple. Our needs were so simple. I don't know. We never really felt like it was a struggle.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
So it didn't become an issue or a strain between you?
We both were good at just getting jobs, whether it was carpentry or I worked for a couple of filmmakers. I did all sorts of random jobs. We just cobbled together a living. It was so much easier, I think, than it is now.
And I was an actor and was doing theater, which of course makes almost no money. But at that point, I designed and built houses from scratch. There was nothing you needed in the building of a house that I couldn't do. So I'd do a theater show and, we need money. I'd pick up my tools and do a carpentry job. So we had enough. And I think our culture loses sight of enough so quickly. We're goaded by the sort of consumerist ethic to lose sight of enough. I think the billionaires who still need more money for what? So
Yeah.
we were blessed. We were blessed with that as well.
And that you shared that. Certainly that's a core value to share with someone else because, of course, financial discrepancies can get the better of a lot of couples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's not a strain over the years, especially when we had kids and
Yes, I imagine. Yeah.
need new clothes and new shoes and very real things. I was about 40 when I realized, money does matter to a certain extent. Does help to have some funds.
What's the core difference that has been difficult, if you have any?
There is a discrepancy in our sort of public profile. So we are partners, intimate partners in the work that we share together, the embodied present process. And I tend to be upfront more and recognized more. And Allyson has such gifts to offer. She understands the work better than anyone else on earth. And so there's been that imbalance. It is an imbalance, but I feel, and I hope Allyson does too, that we're moving to find ways of restoring balance to that.
Yeah. I'd say we're navigating that. Because of my background as a graphic designer and web designer, I ended up doing a lot of the technical functions that need doing. But more and more, I've started creating courses and sharing them myself.
I love that. And hopefully, maybe this experience today will encourage you both to do some relationship courses together.
I'm so glad you said that because we've talked about it. And I think we were waiting for this book to be finished.
Yeah.
And we talked about creating a workshop on relationship.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Allyson, too, because I was listening to an interview recently with Gabrielle Reese, who's married to Laird, the surfer guy. They're this athlete power couple, and you would recognize them if you saw them. They're absolutely beautiful. They've both been in the limelight. They're both Olympians, and they're magnificent body beings and huge in their businesses. And they were discussing spotlight and how he tends to be more in the spotlight than she does, even though she's obviously as accomplished and in some ways more so, and how that's been for her. And she used this beautiful metaphor about when you're the flower as opposed to the roots or branch, where one is more glamorous in how it appears, but that it's inextricably related to everything else, which I think would be a fair description of the two of you. And yet it can be really irritating when I was in a couple where all the attention was going to him a lot. And he, unlike I'm sure Philip is, or maybe not Philip, maybe you can runaway train this, I don't know, but he loved having the attention on him. So he wasn't willing to include me in the credit for all that he was able to accomplish because all I was giving to that partnership. So has that ever been difficult for you in a way that has caused friction or tension? Or is it just like, this just doesn't feel as good. We got to keep finding better ways.
I think it's been difficult in some ways, but not necessarily ways that have caused friction or tension.
Yeah.
For me, what they've caused is a fair bit of self-reflection and curiosity about what I might be feeling. So I don't, blame is the word that comes up. I don't resent his comfort at being the flower. I love that image because if you didn't have all the roots underneath
Yeah.
that flower, it's like these tulips. It might look good for a few days, but
Yeah.
they're going to die
Exactly.
and fall over.
Yeah.
And the two are, that whole is needed to be here in the world. And that's that sense I have of us, that we're so interwoven. It's hard to disentangle us from each other.
And I do, yeah, I've been an actor all my life. There's a lot of light I'm running into it.
An audience.
But there's no part of me that wants to hog the limelight. I yearn for the world, for more people to feel the gifts that Allyson has to offer.
And I was the shyest child that might ever have been born in Toronto in 1967. I would hide under tables if somebody spoke to me at a family gathering, or I burst into tears on my birthday when they sang happy birthday as a child. And I would say that sharing this work together and deepening into my body being in my way has allowed me even to do this without shaking. 10 years
Yeah.
ago, I think I would probably have turned it down, the opportunity to speak with you like this. And so the work has given me a forum in which to get more comfortable in front of people. I was always comfortable behind the stage. He was the actor, I'd be behind the curtain, doing things, supporting. And now when we do a facilitator training, for example, we're together at the front of the room and working together, and it's really exciting.
And it's so rich having that other voice, not just me, but this diversity of perspectives, this different sensitivity brought to the work and explaining it and helping people understand it.
I'm so happy you used the word sensitivity, because that's where I was going to go next, about shyness and how much shyness has to do with tremendous sensitivity. And it's, as we know, it's usually framed in such a negative way. And I've really learned a lot from you, Philip, to celebrate sensitivity as intelligence. And I was wondering whether that really helped you come out of your shyness, or more of your shyness, Allyson, by just that reframe alone, that maybe he learned from you. I don't know, but I'm wondering to what extent just being able to reframe that and realize, wow, this isn't a weakness. This isn't something to be ashamed of. This is something magnificent about my being and ability to connect even in greater detail and vivid engagement.
Could I contextualize
Yes, please.
sensitivity? Because I kick against the notion that intelligence is our ability to reason in an abstract fashion. It's one part of our intelligence, but for me, our intelligence is a spectrum of sensitivity. And any sensitivity is a form of intelligence, whether it's to a child's tears or to birdsong or to legal argument. And a sensitivity is necessarily reactive. If the retina did not react to light, we wouldn't see. And so that reactivity has to be grounded. And I think that when we accuse someone of being too sensitive, to me, there's no such thing as being too sensitive, but sensitivity needs a commensurate grounding in order to become coherent. Without the grounding, it is incoherent.
And I think as a child, that overwhelm was feeling so much and not knowing that there was this grounded quality that was missing.
Yeah.
Just being on, just feeling the turbulent wave like an ocean froth, and being kicked around on the top layer, and not knowing I could put my feet down into that sand and feel rooted and connected.
Is that one of the main things you've learned from Philip? Or being with him, I should say?
Yeah, I'm maybe slightly getting ahead of myself, but I'm remembering a moment when we were doing a facilitator training in Ireland, and we were going out on our own outside in the space in this beautiful bog on a hill. The retreat center was called Bog Hill. And I don't remember the actual practice we were doing. And I was very much a participant in the work at that time rather than facilitator at that point. And I remember my voice coming from my pelvic floor
Mm.
and just releasing into the world and weeping with the newness of it and the gratitude and the sadness at having denied that voice to myself for so long. And that's one thing I'm just profoundly grateful to Philip for. In his explorations of reclaiming the body, coming back to the body, how they've helped me.
Mm.
It's interesting, we found a box of my papers from the early university days and high school, and in it, like the notes and the questions and the little scribblings were so much about wholeness, and they weren't the same language, but the questions were so similar to scribblings that we've found of his over the years. And I just think that there was something in our recognition of each other back in the bowling alley. I think that's where that was one of the locations that we filmed in. On the stairs in that bowling alley, there was this little moment of recognition.
How many weeks in was that, or days into that, of your meeting?
Many.
Yeah.
It was towards the end, I'd say, of the project. But I can't even remember if it was a 6-week shoot or an 8-week.
Yeah.
Felt like it was months, but
Yeah. I think it was 6 weeks.
yeah.
And so it would have been like the 4th week, the 5th week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When things started to really combust or
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
When the recognition started to dawn. Yeah.
amazing.
And when I told my mother that I'd met someone very special, this look of concern came over her face, and she looked at me and she said, "Darling, does she realize how different you are?"
And you said, yes, she does.
I think I laughed.
You love it. What is one of the main things you've learned from Allyson, Philip?
What I feel every day is her clarity of being. And I bask in it. I am guided by it. I stand in awe of it. There's not a day that it doesn't surprise me in one way or another.
What does that mean, clarity of being? What do you mean by that? Or do you have an example of that?
There's a sense of being at rest in your truth, feeling it with a sensitivity that is wide open. And the Allison's so honest in understanding what she's feeling and why she's feeling it, honest with herself. And there are times when she says, so I've been a little whatever with you, I'm going through this. So she's navigating her truth with a grace that I see as a clarity of being.
I think one of the strengths of our relationship is that we both, I'd say, have a tendency to respond instead of react. And so when something comes up between us, we each, there's not that immediate pushback against something. There's a sort of pausing and feeling like, whatever it might be, is this real, or what am I feeling, or what needs to happen here? And we have somehow a sort of unwritten agreement of being able to take the time or take the space to feel into something that the other doesn't have to jump in and fix, but also to find the clarity and the truth of whatever that moment is. And inevitably, whatever needs to happen emerges out of that. It could be a small hurt or something. I'm reminded of this couple we met in Parsboro, Nova Scotia in the late 80s at a yard sale. And she and her husband had been married forever, and we were about to get married. And she said, well, the secret to a long marriage is communication. And I think for me, what that means is being able to feel what you are actually feeling rather than what you should be, or just not putting things on the other person, feeling for yourself. And then the communication comes out of that truth.
I might add to that if there is a misunderstanding or disagreement, I want to know what she sees. I want to know how she understands it. My impulse isn't to impose on her how I see it or how I understand it. Her eyes, her sensitivities illuminate the world for me, and I want to know what I'm missing.
Yeah.
How do you think it is that is so rare? I hear people complaining constantly about men who won't take responsibility, who aren't curious about what their partner's feeling, who feel threatened by any kind of emotion. It's the opposite of what you're describing, which of course is the predominant experience. I don't know how to ask it positively or negatively. Like, how did you get this way? Or how is it that other people got that way? What is your view on that? And why are people so threatened, particularly men people, by exactly what you're describing, is getting to learn so much about their partner, their female partner's experience, or any gendered partner's experience? Why is there defensiveness rather than curiosity?
Yeah, I agree that it's rare, and I would say it's about as rare as embodiment is.
And they're correlated.
I suspect
I
that they are.
suspect so.
And the other thing too is that you can't get away in our culture from this idea that humans are men and women are a subcategory of human, that the male perspective is the right perspective. The male perspective is the perspective of the intelligence of the head, not the intelligence of the body.
Look how that's worked out for us.
Yeah. You know what? We live in this capitalist system. What does capitalism mean? Well, it comes from a Latin word meaning head. Capitalism is headism. So the values, the ways of being, the correct solutions, this idea that technology will save us, which I see as a very male understanding or belief. What we lack, our deficit, is a deficit of self-knowledge. No technology is going to improve a self-reckoning. And so our beliefs, our values are, when you're a member of the status quo, you make so many assumptions. And these assumptions model the world for you and tell you who you are, and you hold on to them. And you come back to the body, and you are suddenly permeated by the currents of life. And you are not in a position of dominance. You are participant and carried by and guided by the subtlety of the life of the world around you. And so to come back to humility is to come back to humanity. They share the same root. Humus, earth. We are human beings. We are of the earth. And we are striving to disconnect from the earth and go higher. And what the body does is restores that fundamental relationship that allows you to feel yourself at rest on the earth. We're always at rest on the earth, but we've stopped feeling that. And the body understands that so deeply. The body understands belonging in a way that the male imperative feels itself exceptional and doesn't really belong. There's so much in our culture that is corrosive of our humanity.
You just used the word self-knowledge, even though at the beginning of the conversation, you talked about it isn't all about self-knowledge, but in this context, you were speaking about it differently. Can you just clarify what is whole self-knowledge as opposed to cognitive self-knowledge, or just shed more light on that? Because I could have misheard either context, but they seemed contrary.
Yeah. So what we're encouraged to do is to create a static model of who I am.
Okay, that's how
And
you
the,
meant
and
it the
and
first
and
time.
when you create that static model of who you are, then you have to defend it, because who would you be without it? And so we
Yes.
become reactive and defensive around who I know myself to be. And for me, there's this really clear choice. You can be who you know yourself to be, or you can be present. You can't have it both ways. And when I'm present, the world, my relationships illuminate me. That's how I know who I am.
And there's a risk in that. You don't know what you're going to be called to do. You may be called into action or service in some way that's scary or dangerous, or you may be called to love. And is there a greater risk than that? Because it will hurt at some point.
Yeah.
There will be grief when you lose it.
Can I ask what has been the most challenging passage or passages in your relationship? I'm even curious if you're going to pick the same one or whether
Yeah,
they would be
I'm
entirely different.
I look back and I know there were challenges, but the challenges were gifts in a way that deepened our mutual understanding. So nothing comes to mind, but lots would come to mind for you.
something came to mind for me, but just the time in which one of our kids went into what I called the dark forest at
Mm.
14 or so. It was really hard. And while I think we were aligned more or less on how to keep loving her and how to navigate this time, it was so fucking hard. There were moments when I felt a little bit like I was the bad cop and you were the good cop. And I'd just be tougher on her. Like some little voice in me would want, which I know in retrospect, and I think I knew at the time, wasn't what was needed. And that does come up for me as this tough time. Like, even though basically we were aligned, I just had this, I don't know, I felt like the bad cop.
We could not see our way out.
Yeah.
And for me, the most important thing was to make sure that our daughter knew that we loved her.
Yeah.
That was the one thing
Yeah. But we
came
were
back to.
fully aligned on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Always telling her we loved her, even if we got a grumble back or a nothing back.
So parenting.
Yeah, I guess parenting, because parenting brings up the sort of cultural stereotypes and roles. And there were challenges, I'd say. If I'd go out for a night, I'd come home and the place would be like a bomb. And they've had a great time. But and this is me holding on to the stereotype of what parenting looks like. Or I'd be like, can you play it and wash the dishes? They're not incompatible necessarily. So there were moments of conflict, I'd say, around that.
Yeah, and parenting deepened what we share in so many ways. So I don't see it as a challenge that threatened the relationship in any way.
I remember you telling this young woman we did something in theater with, I can't even remember the context, but you threw out this line that, having kids will reveal any unresolved issues in your relationship. And about a year later, we got this very frantic phone call from her saying, I'm pregnant and I'm really worried about my relationship with the person, her partner. And we helped her out however we could. And then a few months later, after the baby was born, she called back and she said, you are so right. I think we're going to break up. There were these issues that they hadn't worked through, and they didn't know how to get through them.
Yeah, and kids also, they know how to push your buttons. Any unresolved issues you have personally, they're gonna activate. So it's a huge, it can be a huge gift to face that and come to terms with it and grow through it.
But that's a big challenge of our culture, like preparing us to be able to even recognize that there's something you need to face rather than just reacting to it.
So clearly both of you view being alive, and certainly in your relationship, is a growth adventure and a growth process. That's a huge core value you both share. And that you are ultimately, I say this carefully, what people call self-referential, but your view of the self is so inclusive. It doesn't mean what people tend to think of it as meaning is this closed system. And yet at the same time, the epicenter is still within this particular body and keeps coming back to that epicenter rather than projectile vomiting towards the other person or becoming other referential, usually in the most negative sense, or in infatuation or codependence in a ultimately fraught sense. Yeah.
That rings
Anything?
true to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
rings true to me.
Yeah.
And just, I can remember throughout the relationship times when you've come to me saying, there's this workshop I remember the Buto workshop very clearly, and that you wanted to do, and you felt it would help support your acting. And it was expensive, and we didn't have a lot of money, and we came to understand this is important to you, so we'll find a way. And I think there are instances like that throughout our relationship where we were each really drawn to something, and we supported each other in going out and finding what that was, not knowing where it would lead. And I think that freedom
And that
and
respect.
that security of being, that if I let you go do this thing and you let me go do this thing, whatever happens is going to be okay.
So you haven't gone through periods of jealousy or fear, feeling threatened in that regard by the other person being out in the world and potentially exposed to all kinds of other opportunities, would you say?
We're both fully human, but I would say moments rather than periods.
Yeah.
Moment and, oh, isn't that interesting?
I used to get really frustrated and jealous of Philip when he'd go play tennis near where we live when the kids were younger, because it would be a few hours. It wouldn't necessarily be a 45-minute going for a jog kind of thing. And then I realized, oh, I could be jealous, or I could just go play too.
I love it. So the jealousy wasn't about a hottie on the other side of the net.
Gets to go do
Engage
that,
and
yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
I'm really grateful we both enjoy doing a lot of things together. We're so lucky that way. We don't do it often, but downhill skiing, which is my happy sport, or tennis, that we can go out there and whack a ball at each other. And I feel like it's probably really healthy to be able to hit a ball at each other as hard as you possibly can and laugh and run around together. And I think that I'm really grateful that we have that ability and passion for being physical in that way together.
We enjoy the same movies and have almost identical responses to the quality of acting. Oh, he's a volunteer, we might say. And our big date of the week is going to the gym twice a week and doing a workout together. And it's such a mundane thing, but it's so important to both of us. We're just absolutely aligned in that. Yeah.
And speaking of passion, I'd be remiss if I don't ask. I would love to know how embodiment and that sense of presence and that experience of presence has benefited your intimate relationship as well, your sensual, sexual relationship, to whatever extent you feel like talking about it.
There is a quality of embodiment that is animalistic. We are brought back to our animal beings, and to allow that to live within this, for me, luminous context of love, and to allow it to be spontaneous and unfold as it does, would not be possible without embodiment.
You're reminding me of, even from early days, I think we've always had a playful kind of wrestling physicality to our intimacy. Just occasionally, I remember being in the doorway of our original little shack that we lived in, wrestling, just this little moment. And I think the delight we might find in each other comes from being able to feel fully ourselves in order to fully feel the other person.
What a beautiful place to rest just on that. Thank you both so much.
It's been a delight, Allie.
I just adore you both and admire you both so much as individuals and as a partnership. And I really hope and pray that this is received as the gift that I'm meaning it and hoping it for it to be, for people to really get a renewed sense, using your word, an illuminated sense of what is possible in love and partnership, because I think the world really needs a whole new version of it. So thank you for sharing yours, because it's really exquisite.
It's been a joy, Allie, being with you and exploring this territory together.
Yeah, it helps me feel the unique flower that our relationship is, and there's a whole meadow of other flowers out there, other examples of love and marriage.
And when you create your workshop, your couples workshop, whether I'm a couple or not by then, hopefully I will be, I'm going to come.
Beautiful. We'll have a spot waiting for you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Lots of love to you
Lots
both.
of love.
Bye. Bye.
I don't want to leave.
I know. Let's not. Just stop the recording and keep blabbing if you have time. Thank you so much for listening to the Brilliant Body Podcast. To continue exploring your body's brilliance, you can visit the show notes for resources and free events. Also, if you'd like to learn more about working with me, just go to ALIMEZEY.com. And just one more thing. There's a reason why podcasters blather on about ratings and reviews, because they truly help these conversations reach more listeners who are ready to reclaim their brilliance too. And it's so easy. You just go to the main page of the show, scroll down and look for those 5 stars and click. And please follow us if you haven't already. And even better, write a review. I would so appreciate it. Until then, as always, and more so than ever, keep reclaiming your brilliant body.